Hi, this is Tim Allen for QSPN Live, and we are here with Dave Harris and Charlie Cannell, and we are here at the Royal Mines Stamp Mill. And the stamp mill was just run today. We're going to run some footage of that during this video. But the important thing here is that Charlie's here to do something kind of cool. And first of all, I guess, Charlie, just kind of give us your background in stamp mills and your research on that.
Yeah, I've been restoring stamp mills for over 20 years. I've worked on at least a half a dozen actual hands-on restoring the stamp mills, and the rest of them I've gone around the country. In the U.S. right now there's 15 operable stamp mills in the United States. There's actually 2 back on the East Coast, one in Dahlonega, Georgia, the other in North Carolina, and they're both 10 stamp mills, and they're in museums and they're run. I videotaped those last summer. But most of the mills are located in California, Arizona. There's one or two in Colorado, and of course Montana here. This is going to be the 16th operable stamp mill. And basically, I've been doing this for over 20 years, like I said, and I really enjoy doing it. So it's a hobby.
So when you look at this particular one, like the Royal Mines Stamp Mill, that's outside in its state and the way it is, how many of the 16 are like this?
Well, I set a requirement on operable stamp mills. I'll sort of answer this a roundabout. There are people that say their stamp mill operates, but when I went through the tour, they went up there and they would engage one stamp and they'd pull a belt around till it dropped, and they call that operational. Well, that's not quite the pull. So
Dave's laughing. Dave knows there's a lot more work to it than that.
So what I do, I require certain specifications. Now my blog, which is stampmillman.blogspot.com,
and we'll have that at the bottom of the screen for you too,
identifies the ones that are operable. What I use for requirement is, number one, they're fed. The stamp mills are fed, not automatically. They can be fed manually. They rotate. The speed is not required. It's not normally the mills originally rotated at about 60 RPM. This is probably about 30 or 40 RPM, which is fine. And also that they do something with it. They crush the ore and they do something with it. Right here, they have buckets that they catch this in. They're going to pan out the gold, or the silver in this case, out of the concentrates. So that's what I use as a rule of thumb for operational. That's what I call, so that we can actually identify those mills that run, that actually operate. And this mill definitely fits the bill. It's very, very excellent the way they set this thing up.
And so hearing that, Dave, I mean, that's got to make you feel pretty good about being one of a select few that do this.
Yep, it does.
Can you kind of speak to some of, just in brief, some of the bigger pieces of this? As you put it together, what were some of the benchmarks that you guys were trying to hit to make this stamp mill operable?
You mean the steps we went through that build?
Yeah. Just some highlights, really.
Well, first we had to pour this slab here. And then we had to replace all the wood in these main beams here. And a friend of ours, machinist in Missoula, Phil Richardson, he done all the shaping and facing on this wood on his big metal machine, inlet and drilling. And then we brought that up here, and then we laid it out on the slab and put it together, laying on the ground.
Yeah, this thing is...
Then we got Larry Hoffman from Butte with his crane over here to set it up, set the structure up.
And I think, and Phil was telling us when we interviewed him, these beams are like 2 or 3 tons a piece, if I'm not mistaken.
They're what?
They're like 2 or 3 tons a piece. He was saying they were extremely heavy to get them up in
there.
there.
They don't weigh that much.
Oh, really?
I think you misunderstood what I told you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and so in getting this together, you know, obviously the goal was to get it together. Was there anything beyond that? I mean, obviously getting recognized by this is kind of a landmark. Was there anything? Is this just a labor of love? Is this a personal satisfaction? What drives you to keep this incredible thing going?
Posterity. There was probably a dozen stamp mills right around Phillipsburg between the late 1860s and the early 1900s that were operational
Man.
production.
And so this is just the last piece of a history that
Well,
almost
this is,
extinguished itself.
This is the only one that's standing.
And so, Charlie, so when you look at this now, you talked about a certification program for
Right,
the millmen.
right.
Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I've certified approximately 40 individuals as millmen. We also have another qualification, which is millwright. Now, the difference between a millman is a person that has knowledge of operation of the mill, and they're, even though they look sort of simple, there's some complexity in operating stamp mills, setting up the flow of material through the box and stuff like that. But at any rate, the millman qualification is that an individual understands each part of the mill, what it's called, what it does, and also that he actually successfully drops and resets the stamps to make sure that and they do it without fear, of course. And we run them through a program, and I got a regular 15, 20 page document that I use
Wow.
when people train. And that's one of the things I want to do is set up a training program here up in Phillipsburg. One of the problems is with everywhere is getting people to operate these things.
Yeah.
There's most of the interest are older people. I'm 70. I don't know how old you are. You're just
73.
he's just a chicken. But it seems that the younger people really are not interested. Most of the people I train are probably the earliest are in the 50s, and then up to 84 is one of the individuals I certified. But we have a regular training program. We put that through it, and we give them a certification, a plaque that certifies that they're qualified millmen. Now, millwrights are people that have worked on multiple mills, show leadership and training other individuals, and that's generally we have a person that's millwright is the one person that signs off on the other individuals. So that's what we're doing. We're going to set a program up here and get people trained in operating the stamp mill.
And I think, kind of going back to what Dave said, this is a piece of history that is living, that actually works, that people can see how this, every time I watch it, it's just amazing to me how somebody came up with the idea to do this. I mean, it's just a phenomenal piece of equipment.
I was going to explain more of the steps we took
Okay.
to build this. And the next, after erecting the framework, the next thing was putting in the camshaft there. And then the stamp, which we did with one of them high lift forklifts. And then we got that running and everything. Then we got the ore feeder going. And then we got that, the jaw crusher. That was the last.
Yeah.
And we got plans to put a shaker table in here, a Wolfley table.
Oh, great.
And then we can actually run some gold ore that's free milling gold and make a concentrate. But that's a year or so in the future.
Sure. And when you get to that point, and maybe either one of you can answer this, when you maybe just from the rocks around here, Dave, when you run gold through there, how many tons of rock do you have to run through to get several ounces of gold, or several ounces
Depends
of...
on the grade of the ore. That's all over the map. You might have ore that's running a quarter ounce, or you might have some 5 ounce per ton.
Wow.
With the high grade, of course, you're going to get a lot better production.
Sure.
It just depends on your ore grade. It's real variable.
Yeah, that's a question that's asked by a lot of people. And my rule of thumb, as far as gold production goes, from the early miners, they use a rule of thumb like if they could get a quarter to a half ounce of gold out of a ton of ore, it was worthwhile processing. So that's just a rough idea of.
Sure.
So a ton of material is a pretty good chunk of dirt. But probably a ton would probably be maybe about 12 5-gallon buckets.
Okay.
So the old miners, they would say something that would be valuable would be if it was a quarter to a half ounce per ton. And of course, like he says, or Dave says, you may hit a spot there where maybe a couple ounces or whatever, but that's rare. Generally,
Yeah.
you're going to find most of the gold you're going to find is fairly fine. As a matter of fact, the old timers, that sluice table over there, they would coat that. They make it out of copper and they coat it with mercury, and they'd have to crush that ore down to about 20 mils to get it small enough so it would stick to the mercury. It would stick on the
gotcha.
table amalgam. They'd take and when the amalgam got pregnant with gold, they'd scrape it out. They'd put it into a retort heater at about 800 degrees, flash it off, put the mercury back on the table, and they'd have what they call moss gold. They'd melt that down into a dory, and then they'd go ahead and send it to a refinery, because when Mother Nature puts this together, it's not, they don't have gold separated from the silver, separated from the zinc, and so on. It's all together. So they have to refine it. So that's the process going through that.
It sounds like the gold is hasn't changed much as far as whether you hit it big or you hit it a little, and that the method of getting it out has been the changing factor throughout the years. So
Yeah, well, they used stamp mills up until probably the 20s, and then they went with a ball mill, which is a real simple device. It's a big drum that they put steel balls in it. They feed the material in one end, and it comes out the other, and then they put it through the Wolfley table or whatever.
It
It rotates.
Grinds
So
with
it's very
the
simple.
steel
All you got
ball.
two bearings with here. You got dies, you got shoes, you got stems, you got tappets, you got cams, you got a bull wheel, all stuff that's subject to damage. So that's something that's when they went to the ball mills, it really went simple. But I'll tell you, a lot of the old miners like these. The reason why is the stamp mill stamps it, crushes it down. These other mills, they roll it and it elongates the gold out. For some reason, the old timers didn't like that.
Oh.
They liked it crushed down, and that's why they like the stamp mills better than the other ways of doing it. So.
all right. Well, guys, thank you very much for your time today. Another chance to see this thing run is always a great opportunity. Charlie, we thank you for coming up from
problem.
Arizona, and
No.
again, we'll put his blog is at the bottom of the screen, so make sure you go there and check that out. A lot of great pictures of some stamp mills.
Stamp
but
mills,
there's-
other equipment too. I restore other things besides stamp mills.
Okay.
Gyratory crushers, also jaw crushers. I've restored old mucker machines. So I've done a restoration, a lot of it, and it's all in this blog.
And soon to have pictures of the stamp
correct,
mill here,
yes.
the Royal Mine Stamp Mill. So thank you very much, guys, and we appreciate you guys taking time with us. For reporting for QSPNLive.com, this is Tim Allen.